Hi, my name is Chris Afcha, and I'll be reading Charles Dickens' Bleak House, Chapter 4, Telescopic Philanthropy. This is when um, Miss Claire, Mr. Carstone, and Miss Catherine are sent to Mrs. Jollibee's, and they're escorted by Mr. Kench. We were to pass the night, Mr. Kench told us, when we arrived in his room, at Mrs. Jollibee's. And then he turned to me, and he said he took it for granted I knew who Mrs. Jollibee was. I really don't, sir, I returned. Perhaps Mr. Carstone or Miss Clare, but no. They knew nothing whatever about Mrs. Jollibee. Indeed, Mrs. Jollibee, said Mr. Kench, standing with his back to the fire and casting his eyes over the dusty hearthrug, as if it were Mrs. Jollibee's biography, is a lady of very remarkable strength of character, who devotes herself entirely to the public. She has devoted herself to an extensive variety of public subjects, at various times, and is at present, until something else attracts her, devoted to the subject of Africa, with a view to the general cultivation of the coffee berry, and the natives in the happy settlement, on the banks of the African rivers, of our superabundant home population. Mr. Jardines, who is desirous and to aid any work that is considered likely to be good, and who is much sought after the philanthropist, has, I believe, a very high opinion of Mrs. Jollibee. Mr. Kench, adjusting his cravat, then looked at us. And Mr. Jollibee, sir, suggested Richard. Ah, Mr. Jollibee, said Mr. Kench, is, I don't know that I can describe him to you better than by saying that he is the husband of Mrs. Jollibee. On a night, he said Richard, with a droll look. I don't say that, returned Mr. Kench gravely. I can't say that, indeed, for I know nothing whatever of Mr. Jollibee. I, never to my knowledge, had the pleasure of seeing Mr. Jollibee. He may be a very superior man, but he is, so to speak, merged in the more shining qualities of his wife. Mr. Kench proceeded to tell us that long, dark, and tedious on such an evening, and as we proposed this arrangement, a carriage would be at Mrs. Jollibee's to convey us out of town, early in the forenoon of tomorrow. He then rang a little bell, and the young gentleman came in, addressing him by the name of Guppy. Mr. Kench inquired whether Miss Summerson's boxes and the rest of the baggage had been sent round. Mr. Guppy said yes. They had been sent round, and a coach was waiting to take us round too, and as soon as we pleased. He then then it only remains, said Mr. Kench, shaking hands with us, for me to express my lively satisfaction in good day, Miss Clare. This arrangement, this day, concluded, and my goodbye to you too, Miss Summerson, lively hope that it will conduce to happiness. Glad to have the honor of acquaintance with you, Mr. Carstone. Welfare, the advantage of all the points of view, all concerned. Guppy, see the party safely there. Where is there, Mr. Guppy? Said Richard, as we went downstairs. No distance, said Mr. Guppy. Brown and Fives Inn, you know.